Welcome to the Nordic Mythology Podcast. I'm Daniel Farron, co-owner of the company Horns of Odin, and I'm joined, as always, by Dr. Mathias Nordvik.
Hello, everybody. We are joined this time by Uffe Berenth, really good friend of mine and a really awesome tattooist from Denmark, from the tattoo studio Ginnungagap Art. Welcome, Uffe.
Thanks a lot. It's great to be here. I have not tried this a lot, so I'll try not to be too nervous.
Oh, you'll be fine. You'll be fine. We're lovely people.
Yeah. I'm not too scared.
No. So before we get to how are you two? How are you both doing? Have you been up to anything folks? I have a little story about me today, nearly killing myself. So I'll let you two go
first.
I just finished working. It's evening here in Denmark, and I have been working on a dedication to the god of Ulla, the god Ulla, who is maybe lesser known hunting god.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I had a great day.
Yeah, I'm guessing you'll be really busy with the backlog from being closed.
Yes, we are now fully opened again, and the borders are open again, which is pretty awesome. So I think by now we have everyone scheduled that was sort of on hold during Corona.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's quite wonderful to be at it again full time.
I bet that's a good feeling. Mathias, I saw that you've been up in the mountains with some friends.
Oh yeah, I went. I took some of the Highland people touring the mountains. They're playing tonight at the Red Rocks venue here in Colorado. So
Cool.
we went on a little cruise in the mountains. Some of them needed to get out of the city after having been there for a day.
Nobody got eaten by a mountain lion.
Nobody got eaten by a mountain lion. We went to see the old capital of Colorado, Central City, which is where the gold rush started back in the day. This is incidentally also the town that paved its sidewalks in gold at one point.
Well, literally.
I mean, it's a rundown shithole, to be honest. There's nothing but casinos there.
Because they put all the gold on the streets and everyone stole it.
I guess so.
Yeah, I don't suppose it's there anymore.
No, it isn't.
No, it wouldn't last long.
I showed them that it's very, cowboy, Wild West kind of feeling to it. And then we took a little drive into the mountains and dropped down to Nederland, or Netherland as it is called, where I used to live. And of course, most of the people that I was driving with, they're Dutch, so they had a fun time learning that the town in the middle of the mountains is called Nederland, which means, Netherlands, like low-lying place of some kind.
Now that you had have your green card, did you feel even better being the guide? Did you have like a little bit more of sense of a belonging?
I feel totally local now.
You got your green card.
I got my green card. So
congratulations.
Thank you. So now I can do normal things like a normal human being.
Yeah, not have to worry all the time.
Yeah.
And more importantly, we can make some of that podcast money. Hopefully, if we can figure out how.
Yeah, that's a thing. Figuring out how.
Yes. So I had a fun time at work. So Eddie, the guy who works for me, he's off for a couple of weeks because he's getting married. So I'm going to his wedding on Thursday. So I've got a young lad in covering that I'm trying to teach. And I was wearing a big baggy t-shirt and I leaned over one of the grinders that we have. I was spinning to close the extraction unit. My t-shirt got caught in it and kind of pulled me into the machine. thankfully I was calm enough just to turn the machine off, and then I moved away and had a big rip all down the side of my t-shirt that ripped up, and a nice big no, not like a cut, but like a graze where the sanding wheel had like sanded against my stomach.
Oh,
so that was
shit.
my fun day today. I was like, oh, well, that ended fairly well, but I'm glad that it was me and not him. But also, it could have been a lot worse. Well, I guess that's
That
what
could have been really nasty.
I guess that's what happens when you're not paying attention. Well, but I survived. I'm here. Oh yeah, Joe asked in the chat if my tattoo's okay. Yes, it just missed my my stomach tattoo.
That's lucky.
Yeah, no, that I would have been pissed off. That I'm still waiting. I'm gonna go see Sean to get that finished. I think in a couple of weeks. So
Oh, I did spot Sean's lines on you.
yes, you did. Yeah. So Sean did my Sean's done a. We're doing like a Thor mask on my stomach. He's done an Odin mask on my back, and then I've got on my neck by Sean as well. So
Cool.
he's a good friend of mine. He's drawn on me quite a lot.
Yeah. Are you located fairly close to him?
I'm about, so when he was in Manchester, I was about 45, 50 minutes away. Now he's gone back to Llandudno. I'm maybe 2 hours away, but it's not too bad. It's I go down and see him, we hang out, we chat, and he draws on me, which is fun. I always find it really interesting. You get people who complain. You get people in the UK who complain about going there. You're driving 2 or 3 hours to go to see him, but then you have people who are willing to fly from the other side of the world to go and get tattooed by him. Like, do you understand how lucky you are that it's only 2 or 3 hours away?
In the US, 2 or 3 hours, that's like a brief commute to work or something like that.
Yeah, I was going to actually ask you do you get a lot of, you said that the borders have now opened up. Do you get a lot of people coming from overseas to Ginnungagap?
Yes, I do actually. Not really by design. It just kind of has happened like that. About 80 and 90% of my clients are from abroad.
Oh wow! So that's quite a percentage.
Yeah, which is lucky because Denmark is very small. So I guess I've run out of customers at some point.
I've got a hit list of tattoo places to go when I finally get over to Denmark and to Copenhagen. There seems to be so many good tattoo places there. I'm like, I want to visit all of them and get a little bit by everybody.
Yeah, and when it comes to like Nordic tattoos, the birthplace is kind of Copenhagen, and then it's like spread out from there.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, we've had so many people on this podcast already that are all based in Copenhagen and I'm just like, as soon as I go to Copenhagen, all I'm going to be doing is getting tattooed for like 3 days. But I'm looking forward to it. So Uffe, where did it all start with you and Nordic Tattoos? Did you did you tattoo regularly before, or did you like just normal designs, or was you a Nordic tattooist from the outset?
Yeah. For me, it was always only about the Nordic tattoos. I started about 10 years ago. So I started as an apprentice quite late. I've done a bunch of other things before. And art-wise, I've worked with leather, and I worked with illustrations and wood carving, and it was kind of the same style, the same stuff I was working with. But I was quite fascinated. I mean, before I actually started learning myself, I was quite fascinated with the idea of particularly the Polynesian tattoos and the idea of ritual and a symbolic language you can use to actually describe a story or imbue the wearer with a certain power. It just and then I just thought we have such a rich heritage, Scandinavian historical heritage, where you have symbols and myths and sagas and runes and so on, like in abundance, to do the same. So that was that's part of what I set out to do, like to what attracted me to tattooing was the actual situation of being tattooed. Like in the situation, there is a strange connection or almost a certain magic happening. And I use the word magic rather loosely, but happening between the person getting the tattoo and the person tattooing it. And this I felt there was a power in this, and that's what attracted me to it. And then I thought, if I can at the same time pull on a cultural heritage connected to a spirit that I feel we are missing today. If I can combine that with that powerful experience that tattooing is, then I think I'm onto something. And that's what dragged me into it. So it was for me about the Nordic expression from the beginning.
Awesome. Just to pull back to what you said, I think that's such a good point, that it is such a connecting thing between the tattooer and the tattooee, because you're locked together in a very close environment for, sometimes maybe up to 8-9 hours a day. And, that you're trusting them with the responsibility of putting something on your skin for life. It's there forever. And also, you do get into conversations where sometimes you go very personal, because you are kind of together in this experience, in this situation, and you just talk and get quite open, and it is a very personal thing, and I really enjoy it.
I mean, you go past all normal sort of intimacy barriers right away. First of all, people are half naked 15 minutes after you met them the first time sometimes, right?
That's true.
So there's an element of you can cut the bullshit, right? We are past all the normal sort of crap we keep up to uphold this kind of illusion of self, and this is who I am, and this is how I interact. And yes, as you say, there's many hours you spend together and you're really close. And there's certainly also elements of whatever your experience is in the tattooing situation is literally being hammered into your skin. Like you could draw parallels to like NLP, as like we literally make anchors of what's happening during the session, right? If that makes sense.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's such a personal experience. But I guess for the person being tattooed, it's a one-off thing that you may do every couple of months, maybe, or maybe once every few years. But obviously for you as a tattooist, it's every day in, day out. You're in this headspace of being sort of connected to someone.
And to me, that that means I have a crazy big responsibility that I need to take very, very seriously, and I really, really do. So in the sense that it is my finest job to be a proper channel every day, right? I need to try and be the best tool I can be for this spirit that we are trying together to channel onto this person that we're working on. So
yeah, I imagine that you find yourself probably in some awkward situations, in that I imagine people open up, across maybe 8 hours of being tattooed, some people may just open up and share things that maybe they wouldn't share with other people or in that situation. And then you almost become not a therapist, but you also, you're listening to people's troubles, I imagine, and you're also tattooing them whilst maybe speaking about some very personal issues.
Yeah, for sure. And I actually think it's all kind of connected, right? I mean, if we're serious about what we do as tattooing as more as just pretty pictures, but a ritual process, then the rest of your life have to kind of be in there too. Like, why are you here? What do you want this to do for you? And very often, of course, people come when they're at a stage in their life where they're in some sort of crossways, some sort of something made them think now it's time to get this rather large dedication to something, or I need more power for so and so.
Well, so this, I would say, one of the things that seems to distinguish you from a lot of other tattoo artists is that you have that spiritual component to your work, right? That's pretty unique in that sense.
Actually, I think the tattooing process in itself is magical and powerful and spiritual, but I think a lot of people might not think about it so much. But like, even if you go to, I don't know, more traditional, but neo-traditional or tattoo artist, and you choose a picture from a book and they slap it on and it's to it, it is still powerful, right? Even if even if they try to cut everything out of it and it's just like a business transaction, the power is still there. I don't think you can get away from it. I just try to be conscious about it, and try to use it constructively.
Right.
Yeah, I think for me as well, personally, I think tattoos can almost give people confidence as well. It's almost sometimes like a form of armor that you're putting this on your body, and whether it's the people are they've not got the most confidence in their own body and it's almost covering up, or whether it's just an addition on top of, and it's just like, I don't know whether new skin's the right word, but it is quite empowering, and you walk. I know when I get a new tattoo, I walk out with my head a little bit higher, and I want people to see it. And even with my my stomach, it might not be my favorite part of my body, but I'm like, fuck it, I've got this really awesome claw face on my stomach now. I don't mind if people see that, because I'm proud of it, and I'm proud of the work that Sean's done.
And I think there's an interesting kind of dynamic going on there, right? Which is essentially kind of religious, if you think of it like this. You go to someone and you let go of control, right? You put yourself in their hands. In a sense, you sacrifice yourself to this process. And then you come out of it with something.
Yeah.
So you go in sacrificing yourself and you come out stronger.
Absolutely.
And that is, I think there's an immense power in this, because, well, first of all, how often in this day and age do we actually first let go of control, let go of our own designing of our image, so to speak, and how often do we actually have to make a sacrifice of some sort? I mean, just lying there, letting go of the control, and it hurts, and it takes a long time, and there is a sacrifice in that. I think it's beautiful.
The pain is definitely a sacrifice, I think. How often do you get people who come in with an exact design? Because I guess with most Nordic style tattoos, people aren't the best at drawing this style of artwork, so they'll go to a tattooist with an idea, and then you leave it open for their interpretation. And I mean, I'm probably one of I imagine tattooists hate what I do, so I'll go to Sean and I'll say, I want something on my stomach. You have free reign, do what you want. And like you were saying, you're sacrificing yourself. And I say, I'm like, You just get your Sharpies out, draw what you want to draw, and let's see what comes out. And it is that sacrifice, because at the end of the day, I'm not 100% sure what I'm going to get. And I imagine that's very similar across the board. Even if people aren't as open as me, they'll come with an idea and say, look, I want Ulla, or I want Tia, or I want Thor. And then you're then the master who creates this piece of art, and they're putting that in your hands of how it ultimately ends up.
Yeah. I mean, it does work like that. No, I make all the designs. I draw all the designs directly on the body.
Mm-hmm.
And most of the time, people come and have a vague idea of direction, or say it needs to happen mostly on my arm, I think, and I'm thinking maybe Raven, for example.
Yeah.
And I like this or that. And sometimes they come in like you described and say, please give me autumn something. And I try to live up to that.
When
I had one client that came in. He did not speak very well English when we started, and he asked for a full body tattoo. And and the only thing he said was basically Viking style full body.
Do you like it when it's? Do you have a preference? Would you prefer someone who has a very clear direction, or do you like that openness of somebody just saying, you know what, do your best work, you go nuts? From my perspective, when I do it because I think that if I can give free rein to tattooists, they're probably going to do the best work, because they're going to do something they really want to do, and they're going to really get into it because they've got free rein. It's like, I've had this idea for a while, I'm going to throw that on there. But I just wondered if you had a preference, which
when I feel like a project worked the very best, and it may sound corny, but it's actually when I feel like I got the client enough and they influenced enough along the way so that the product is kind of something we did together.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And I usually we sit and talk. We have some coffee when they come in, and we sit and talk. And they tell me about their lives and what they were thinking about the tattoo, and we chit chat, and then we start loosely drawing and just playing around. But I always tell them, if you have any thoughts along the way, if you have a sudden idea, just say it out loud, and stuff happens, you know. There can be inspiration, and it's very hard to say where it came from, because it was sort of in the synergy that was happening in the room.
Mm-hmm. So one question: how much do you tattoo with the stick and poke, and how much do you do with the machine?
I used to hand poke more. I don't know why I don't like the term stick and poke. Anyway, I call it hand poke.
You're right, hand poke. I think stick and poke is sort of kind of like prison associated over here in the US,
I get the association of kids buying a stick and poke set on Wish, and then starting poking each other with sharp things at home. I don't know.
Sounds like you're gonna rob someone. Sounds like a hold up, like you stick and poke. Give me all your money.
Stick them up, or I'll poke.
It just sounds a little child. I don't know. I agree. It sounds a little bit off.
Mm-hmm. I guess you're right.
Well, the traditional hand poking, where I would make a tool and sit and hand poke, I don't do it as much as I used to. I quite enjoy it, and every now I have clients that where it's important that this is the way we do it. It takes longer, and I find that I'm doing quite big things, and And there's, yeah, I don't know how much I do it. 10% of the time,
Oh, okay.
20 sometimes.
Yes.
Sometimes it's a combination, because people would like to try the traditional method, but they also want a lot of tattooing done.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
we will do.
and that's funny that you mentioned that, because when you tattooed my arm, I mean, I feel like it went just as fast when you were doing it with the hand poke.
Yeah, it depends a little bit of what exactly it is that we're doing. If we're doing like dot work shading, it's pretty much as fast. But
yeah.
I guess it's down to how much you do it as well, because obviously we had Raffenhilde from Habanero, and she did my finger, and it was just as quick as somebody with a machine.
Yeah.
But that's all she does day in day out is hand poke.
Yeah, I can definitely see a tendency in my Nordic tattoo colleagues that some choose to basically do hand poking only, and I have a lot of respect for that. It's for some reason that's not what attracts me the most about this Nordic Nordic style. It's, for me, and I'm not saying it's like this for the other guys, but for me, what's interesting is not so much to be like people maybe were for 1,000 years ago. It's what attracts me is the attempt of connecting to a pre-Christian Scandinavian spirit that I still think we have in our roots, that I thoroughly believe that we need today. A different way of thinking.
Yeah, probably more than ever. Just to pull you back, you said that you make your own hand poke. Is that the tool? Do you do that for everyone? Because every time I've been hand poked, it's always been a little metal stick out of a packaging, I guess, that comes pre-made. I never knew anybody who made one themselves.
Well, I don't make the needle. I use a single-use sterile needle.
Okay, that's what I was wondering. I didn't know whether
yeah.
there was this type of, like, you made one from a little bit of bone. It's like, that sounds amazing.
It's possible, but probably not that hygienic. No, I just mean I put a tool together that has a good weight and is nice to hold, and it's then thrown out afterwards.
I was wondering, and I was also very amazed by it, I guess. Before we go down the most important question that we ask all the tattooists is whether Vikings were tattooed. Before I ask you that, I saw in the chat someone mentioned that in Denmark it's illegal to have your hands and neck tattooed, or hands and face tattooed, was it?
It's perfectly legal to have them tattooed. It's not legal to tattoo them.
Oh, okay. So this is like the whole, it's illegal to take to sell steroids, but you can take steroids. That's how it is in the UK anyway.
Yeah, it's something like that. It is not legal for me to tattoo hands and face. Actually, above the shirt collar, I think the original phrasing is.
Wow. So if you did that, what's the punishment? Is it one of these things that they don't care, or would you just not do
I don't think anyone cares much. It's only very recently, within the last couple of years, we've actually gotten like proper hygiene laws, and we have to be registered as a studio, and there's like checkups on whether we do it properly and so on. But before that, there was basically only the two laws in Denmark that, well, you had to be, you couldn't tattoo anyone that was below the age of 18, and you couldn't tattoo hands and neck and face. And that was the only laws in existence. And that law, for some reason, is just still there.
Denmark is such a weird country when it comes to these rules and laws around tattooing. Like, we're so far behind pretty much the rest of the world in terms of, like, you know, how the government, you know, views tattooing. Like, I think it's incredible to hear that it's only just recently that you got proper hygiene laws and all that stuff. Like
That
what
is
the hell, guys?
Yeah, that is insane.
There's a lot of chatter right now about, I don't know if you hear the same in the US, but there's a lot of stuff going on about inks right now. Certain pigment colors are getting banned in the EU because they are not within a certain safety margin of possibly being carcinogenic. What do you call it?
Carcinogenic.
Yeah, thanks. And it may go into effect next year, and it's like a specific green pigment, a specific blue pigment, and it's going to affect the whole range of colors. I'm guessing there's some producers very busy now making up new things, but yeah, there's a lot of chatter about this here in the community right now. I mostly use black, so I'm not too worried.
So is this sort of like an offshoot of, you know, that controversy that was there like 5-7 years ago about some people having adverse reactions to certain colors and all that stuff?
I suppose, yeah.
Okay, yeah. Again, it's kind of an interesting subject, right? Because as far as I know, there's not a lot of research on that stuff in general. We don't have
I guess
proper
they
scientific
get
research.
to it, make some.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's insane that tattoos across the board, not just Nordic tattoos, are so incredibly popular. You know, these days it's most people you see, I think now, especially younger people, have tattoos, but it still seems so archaic in the laws. Even in the UK, I think there's very little actual restriction. I know you have to be registered as a tattooist, and there's certain things you have to adhere to, but there's no kind of training program or like scholarship you can go to where they will teach people the proper hygiene, teach people how to tattoo. It's still very much an on-the-job apprentice style teaching, and it seems insane that the governments are either holding back or don't want to push it forward.
They just don't care. Like, it's as if they just don't care.
I'm sure they could find a way to make plenty of money from it if they wanted to.
Oh, I'm sure. I actually think it's pretty awesome that it is, as far as I can think of, one of the last educations in this country, at least, which is actually like master apprentice based. Mm-hmm. If you want to get into it, you have to find someone who will teach you.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's pros and cons, and I'm sure there's a lot of horrible experiences out there, but there's something about it I really like this trait that is passed on to someone worthy, if you will.
No, I agree. Like, I was a plumber for 12 years before I started Horns of Odin, and I learned from my boss. I learned plumbing from him every day. I'd have to do all the shitty jobs, but I'd learned a little bit more here and there, and eventually I knew
all
what
the
I was
little
doing.
Weird tricks of the trade that you only really learn if you have your hands on it, right?
That's it, and you have a connection to them without a doubt. You know, I have a lot of respect. I have a lot of respect for it. So Ben was a guy who taught me. I have a lot of respect for him. He gave me the skill to earn money and look after myself and provide for my family, I guess. And even though I don't use them now, I've taken another path. He still gave me these skills that I could use now or in 10 years. It's very much a relationship that you get with someone, and it's that passing on, and you have to have that mutual respect.
Yeah.
So okay, let's get to the burning question of whether you think the people in the Viking Age in Scandinavia were actually tattooed. We only have one.
Of course, I think so. It is a warrior culture. We know for a fact they no, I don't actually want to get into any of the arguments. Yes, I definitely think so, but I also don't care too much.
Okay.
Again, I don't think what's interesting nowadays is for us to try and become Vikings. I'm very inspired by the finds, the silver finds, the wood carvings, all this rich heritage. They actually just found a huge gold hoard in Denmark again, like a few weeks ago, filled with new bracteates, which are these golden coins with these quite specific weird figures on them. There's usually a horse and a guy sitting on the horse and with weird hair that sometimes is a bird, and some runes. And they've just found, like, I don't know, tons of these, and they're very different, all of them. Anyway, so there's so much inspiration to draw from. The tattoos I make are definitely not historically correct.
Mm-hmm.
And I am not really interested in them to be historically correct.
Mm-hmm.
What I like is, instead of trying to make a museum piece, I would like to be part of pulling a certain spirit into our age.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But do I think they were to do it? Of course they were.
Yeah.
Like, heavily, I'm sure. But
we only have one person who said no, and that's Luciano of who does the Children of Ash project, and he's the only tattooist who's ever been like, no, I don't think they are. But equally, he knows so much about this stuff that I'm like, oh.
Well, I mean, I am going to be in Iceland in November arguing that they tattooed, so we'll see how that goes.
Yeah,
at the Nordic Mythology Conference in Reykjavik. So
I personally think they will have been to some degree.
I think it's very likely. You know, it's kind of like the argument with the drum. Like, we haven't found any drums from the Viking Age. But it's like, would Scandinavia be the only corner of the world where they didn't have drums? You know, we have written and archaeological evidence all around Scandinavia in Europe that suggests tattooing. So, like, would Scandinavia be the only place where people didn't tattoo?
Yeah, and also it's like this is not like one people or one country.
No.
I mean, people from Scandinavia went into Russia like way before the so-called Iron Age or so-called Viking Age, and they were all over the place. Like, they were probably very different from one valley in Sweden to the next.
Yeah, no, I think you made a brilliant point as well. Is what does it matter whether they were or weren't? In modern times, it doesn't really matter, because let's say they weren't tattooed, does that mean that we're not allowed in modern day to look at the artwork and look at the artifacts they left behind and go, oh, I can't tattoo that on me because they didn't? Like, what does it really matter? It's a different time, and we can enjoy it and respect it in our own way.
I mean, actually, I think if you take this stuff seriously, like about the spiritual part, if you take it serious that there is some power in this that we can draw on, then it really doesn't matter. Like, are we playing Vikings, or are we trying to actually internalize a certain way of thinking that we feel like is missing in our culture today?
Yeah,
I mean, there's definitely a lot of people out there playing Vikings, and they are welcome to it.
Oh, there is a lot. there is definitely a lot. Yeah, maybe more than the other side, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's been a funny experience for me to. I mean, I started the tattooing business 10 years ago, but I worked with the runes since '98. And grew up with the stories and the feeling like these gods are more real than this newer Christian one, and all of this, right? And when I started tattooing like this, I remember like feeling, oh, this is nice. This is my little little niche. This is a weird little corner. Some people will probably get it, and then they will, and then it kind of exploded. Probably because of certain Hollywood productions, and all of a sudden, this Viking thing became like, as you say in Danish, elements. Like everyone owns it, right?
Yeah.
And well, I'm sure that I can thank the production from certain clients coming from the US, for example. But it's also weird. It is kind of weird. I mean, I'm yeah.
No, I know what you mean. Like, you know, growing up with this stuff just being sort of like part of your life in one way or another. That's how it was for me. And then all of a sudden you're seeing things that, you know, you kind of had a personal relationship to back in like the 90s, for instance, or the early 2000s, because it was part of your cultural identity, your spiritual identity as well. You're suddenly seeing that like blown up all over the internet, or tattooed on people's bodies, or you know, Americans sitting over here having no connections or relations to Scandinavia besides the ones that they're, you know, generating now, right? Talking about this and having opinions about it, and you're like, what the hell happened?
Look here, you've got your green card and you've got all brave, haven't you? Talking about the Americans.
Hey, I've always said these things.
No, I know.
I'm here to help them out, figuring out the right way towards that stuff.
I think with anything, it has become such a big part of kind of American culture, I guess, in modern day, and they have such an influence on so many other aspects in the world, especially with, I guess, like Hollywood films, TV shows, that kind of thing, that it then once it gets a hold there, it spreads everywhere, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, doesn't it, maybe personal theory here, but like when people react to it, it's obviously because they feel something, right? Like here is something that feels more real than the, I don't know, lack of realness that I experience in my everyday life. And then they want to pursue this that felt like, oh, here's something with more power than what I grew up with, or and I think that's to be taken serious enough. Like
I mean, yeah. So most people grow up in these culturally sterile environments nowadays in the Western world. If we look at America, for instance, there are so many white Americans whose actual culture has been supplanted by this consumerism. Like you're just being fed the idea that as long as you consume, then you have culture.
And actually, it's the opposite, right? It's
exactly
anti-culture.
It is anti-culture.
It's anti-spirit. I think that's kind of what we are fighting against here. And I don't know if it's a fight we can win. But in the Western world, I mean, this is a spiritual vacuum. And fuck, I don't know what we can do about it. I try in my little way, one person at a time, to put some spirit into this vacuum, but yeah, so obviously, yeah, you see Vikings and you feel like, oh fuck yeah, that seems right, or you see Star Wars and that seems right, or the next week it's something else, or you, yeah.
I think that the interest in Viking stuff, the interest in you know, European past among white Americans with European descendants, I think that's a true expression of from people who are recognizing that what they have otherwise been, you know, brought up to to the ways in which they've been brought up to live are kind of hollow. And at this point, they're basically saying we need more substance in our lives, and that's why you're seeing. Look, I'm looking forward to going to see Hylon tonight at Red Rocks. Red Rocks is a very, in many ways, a very sacred venue. And I'm pretty sure that the energy there is going to be fucking phenomenal, because we are seeing all these people coming all over the country to take part in what is essentially a ritual.
It is. It's like one long prayer that they're doing, basically.
Yeah. So that's an expression, if you ask me, it's an expression of that need to get back to something that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think across the board, we've all lost, or a big part of humanity's lost that spiritual side. Because I know as a child growing up, I didn't grow up amongst any of this. I kind of took this path as I got into adulthood. And when I was a kid at school, if I'd have mentioned anything spiritual or spirituality, I'd have just been laughed at or teased or bullied, because it's just not something that I think is mentioned in, certainly, I don't know about in Denmark or in the USA, but certainly like in the UK, in most households, it's just not something that's mentioned. It's kind of, it's almost laughed at.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, we have gotten to the point where it's not even about if gods exist. It's like, I remember actually asking this bishop in Denmark I met at some point, and I asked him, so do you believe in God? And the asshole couldn't say yes. He said, I guess there's something. You're a bishop, for crying out loud. Like, if we have become so alienated from the thought of there being anything conscious other than us, that that you're being laughed at school for even suggesting such a thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I have a lot of blame to go towards Christianity and any monotheistic religion, really.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's that's a whole can of worms.
But that's another thing, right? So what we're seeing, in a country like Denmark, what is recognized as quote unquote spiritually valid, well, it's like Christianity, if anything at all, and then perhaps like Islam, but it's usually Islam in a Danish context usually cast in a negative light as sort of like scary spirituality, if anything. And so you just have like these two, and this I think is very similar in the UK and many other places in Europe. You have that like Christianity is the okay spirituality. Then you have Islam as like a problematized spirituality. Of course, there are also people who are accepting, but you see that explicated in so many ways in public life, and then everything outside of that is inconsequential. We don't care about that at all, right? That's how it has been for a very long time, if you ask me.
Yeah, and actually, I think I don't know if we should even go into all of this here, and I'm by no means an expert, but all of these religions, like Judaism, Islam, and Christianity, and I think they are very similar. So there's a good chance to make a lot of enemies saying that. But like, it's a religion, it's a hierarchical religion, right? One God in top, and anyone who can sort of speak for that God is then in charge, down to like daddy in the family, right? All the way down, king, and so on. And they seem like political systems of control. And of course, there are people that happen to be Christian that are very spiritual, but then I almost think it's despite the fact that they're Christian. that actual spirituality where you feel connected to the world and not apart from it, we have done our dances to wipe it out over the last 1,000 years.
Yeah, and I don't think, I guess with true spirituality, it doesn't need an overall umbrella term, whether it's Christianity or Islam or even paganism. I think it's your own personal feeling and your own path, and nobody can tell you it's right or wrong or what you feel. I don't think it needs to be put in this box of a certain thing. So you can have Christians who feel spiritual, and like you say, it doesn't have to be because they're Christian. It's because of themselves and how they connect with things, and it is almost in spite of the Christianity.
Yeah,
the system of it all, so to speak.
Yeah, and I think everyone's an individual, and you all feel your own thing, and nobody can ever tell you how you feel. And that's one of the beautiful things about humans, I guess, is that I can feel a certain way and nobody else on the planet can tell me how I'm feeling. It's just how it is. That's my own personal feeling. It's my own thing. And if I say I have a connection with something and I feel and I see it and it speaks to me, and we have this moment in time, nobody can ever take that away. Nobody else can experience it either. It's your thing and your thing alone. And if you choose to then tell people about it, then you can. But you still then can't pass on that experience. It's impossible to do. You can only say in words. It's still your thing. And nobody can say you're insane or you're crazy or you shouldn't do that, because you should do whatever you want to do. And if it makes you happy and you feel that way, then fuck everyone else.
I mean, if it works and it actually makes your life better, then you're onto something, right?
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Yeah. And Mathias, to go back to what you were saying before, I think it's not necessarily that people don't care about everything outside of the top three, or certainly like in the UK, I think it's more that people don't know. It's not taught in schools, like paganism or heathenism. It's not taught in any school. You don't, like, I would, unless I took the path that I did in like my mid-20s and went down this route, I would never have found, I would have known Thor and Odin from Marvel. But other than that, like, I wouldn't have gone down this path. I would have stayed on the one I was on, and I wouldn't have even known this world exists. Maybe I would have known in the same context that I know the Roman gods, the Greek gods from TV shows, that kind of stuff, but not in a spiritual sense. And I just don't think that they're taught or you come across it in everyday life unless this is your thing, I guess.
Yeah, well, I mean, I could rant at you for a long time about how that is part of the Christian cultural fabric of Europe, to erase other religious modalities, basically, right? I mean, it's the same, you might learn a little bit about Hinduism in high school when when you're taking religion in high school, but it's taught as something exotic and distant. It's taught as something that belongs to India over there, right? So in that way, we sort of make sure that nobody is going to fall to Hinduism here in our nice cozy little Western houses, right?
For pray to the Hinduist missionaries.
Exactly, right. and then it's the same with other religions. West African religion is also taught as more of like a curiosity of somewhere else than something that is a viable spiritual path, right? Something that actually is real and alive and living for the people who are practicing and participating in it. So that's part of how I mean Europeans deal with this stuff too. It's always implicitly told that the Christianity is the reality. That's the real thing. And the others, they're at best mistaken, you know, that would be something like Islam versus they're at best mistaking.
No, I think there's something to be said about familiarity, because you see, especially like, again, I can only speak for the UK, but you see aspects of Christianity all over the place. And even though I think most people, especially younger generations, probably aren't religious, you still see churches everywhere. You see crosses, you see these things, and you're very familiar to it. So it's not abnormal. Whereas you said, you know, people have a fear of Islam. To an extent, it's probably because it's so different. So people, I think humans naturally have this fear of things that they don't understand. It's a different language, it looks different, and they kind of pull back. And I think that's maybe the same with some pagan religions, because they go,
it's so hilarious because I can't really see the difference between Christianity and Islam.
No, but I guess maybe like the writing's different. They might not speak English, so it's just an innate maybe fear that some people have. Like I was saying, with the pagan stuff, they may say, "Oh, look at these people walking around the woods throwing blood all over." You know, that's kind of like the image they have with a horse's skull or something. And because they don't understand it, it's just a natural kind of fear of, oh, fucking hell, they must be a little bit weird. And that's, so they just pull back and then don't want to learn because they don't understand it.
Yeah, but on the other hand, I think, you know, in many ways in Scandinavia, those who are heathens or whatever we want to call them, Ausatru, they're more, perhaps even sometimes more accepted than Muslims, because to a lot
Denmark, for
of
sure.
yeah, because, you know, you're usually a bunch of white dudes, right? So,
but this whole Islamophobia that's going on in the whole Western world now, it doesn't really have anything to do with the religion, does it? I mean, it's just politics and fear mongering and
it's straight up racism. That's what it is, right?
Yeah, that's always been very same to me, because where I grew up, it's very highly populated by sort of Pakistani, I guess Indian, and all sort of I went to school with people who part of Islam, and it's very normal to me. And kind of in my area, you walk around, you see some people who are Christian, you see some people who are Islam, like follow Islam, and it's just part of life. Whereas, and it's insane that in some places it's just not, feels like it's not accepted, or there's a fear towards it. And it's that kind of, once, you know, when you live together and you go to school together and you go to the same shops or you play in the same sport teams, you kind of go, you know what, we're exactly the fucking same, just because we're
just people. Yeah, that's all.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think every white European and American should be forced to live at least a year in a country where no one looks like them.
I like the sound of that. That's
it would be good. I can't remember what documentary it was that I watched. It might have been a Louis Theroux, where he went to some neo-Nazis in America, and I remember them, you know, having these abhorrent ideas. And I think he said to one of them, he's like, well, now how many black people do you know? And they were like, well, none. And I said, well, so you, all these opinions you have are based on things that maybe your dad's told you or somebody else has told you, and it's been passed on to you. And you have these opinions based on people you've never met. It's like, well, why don't you just go and talk to somebody, sit down and have a coffee with, or just interact with, and you're going to find out that they're not these demons that there's been fed to you your whole life. And I thought that was such a fascinating point, because so many people who have these shitty ideas and race ideas, they don't actually ever interact with the people that they dislike. It's all fed down from other people.
Of course. And the weird thing is that if you dig down enough, it even comes from a good place. They just want to be in a club. They just want to be in a group where they belong, right? We all do.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes the group you fall into is just not a very healthy one or a very good one for anyone.
Yeah, unfortunately, there's a few of those out there. So let's talk about, once we talk about spirituality, let's talk about Tia. I know Mathias wanted to talk about Tia. Uffe, you have a personal connection. Obviously, it's up to you what you want to share and don't share. But yeah, let's. I feel like we're on the right topic.
Yeah. Well, I kind of wanted to make the point that when we say religion to someone, what we usually associate it with is something that's got to do with faith, right? Mm-hmm. So if you talk to I don't know, Christian person, and you say, so what is your religion to you? Well, it's about faith. I believe in so and so, and I believe that God does so and so, or provides, and is mysterious, whatever. But it's like so we have gotten into this habit of thinking of religion as something like you decide on a set of rules for life that you think makes sense, and then you that's kind of how you're religious, right? Mm-hmm. And I would like to just suggest a redefinition when I get into what my relationship with Tyr. If we think of religion more as lost techniques, like religious techniques, or religion is the knowledge of having techniques to mess with our brain in a way so that we can connect to the gods, or we could even not even call them gods, we could call them deeper neurological dynamics, mm-hmm. Right? Mm-hmm. So when some weird pagans or some tribe run around in the forest, swinging their horse skulls around, covered in blood, whatever they do.
I wondered where you were going with that then. Are they swinging what around?
Yeah, whatever we swing around in the forest. Under the moon, naked. It may look super weird to the outsider, like all these things that we think of as rituals, like in the Catholic Church, they will do something with the holy water and something with the incense and this and that and the other, right? Mm-hmm. And these days, if you go to a church and observe these rituals, they seem empty, and that's because they are. In the sense that it has become a habit that we do so and so and so, but the priest is not actually making a connection. I mean, except people might feel it on a personal level, right? But he's not messing up people's brain in a way that a door is opened. Mm-hmm. So I just want to make that point, but let's just redefine religion as, okay, the knowledge of messing with your brain in a way to open up for something that we're not normally open up for, right?
Mm-hmm. So religion in that sense is relationships.
Yeah, techniques. I mean, almost mm-hmm. as if you said yoga, I suppose. Mm-hmm. Like so a shaman from Siberia is only a shaman because he has learned these certain techniques to either connect himself with someone or something and bring messages back, or to help other people transfer to the other side, right? Mm-hmm. To the underworld or to the overworld, whatever, mm-hmm. Right?
I guess it's through maybe ways of meditation as well. You can get there.
For sure. I mean, I think there are a million ways to do it, and whatever tradition you pick that is actually a living religion, meaning there is actual contact. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You will see that this tradition then has certain techniques. And I spent most of my life looking for shit that worked, because I had a bunch of experiences when I was younger, like I actually think most people do, and couldn't really find answers in like the conventional sort of consensus knowledge. So I searched around. I'm sure a lot of people are searching a lot, And found different things that work. I found some power in the runes, or a divination method that spoke to me. But about 10 years ago, I was invited to take part in certain rituals from the Brazilian tradition of candomblé.
Mm-hmm.
And my initial response was, "Oh, it's got nothing to do with me. It's weird Brazilian names, and it doesn't really speak to me." But I also recognized, shit, there's something here that works.
Yeah.
The guy that introduced me to this had gone to Brazil and was initiated there as a priest, and came back and was charged from the other side with coming back to Denmark and making a Nordic version of this. So basically, for the last 10 years, I've been involved in this and practicing this to some extent. And at some point, it became apparent that I was wanted to go through an initiation also. And the weird thing is that even though this is like tools, religious tools and techniques and rituals from this Brazilian religion, which actually came to Brazil from Angola and Congo mostly, with the slaves that were brought over there, and then transmuted a lot over there and took in some Catholic elements and like, it is not dogmatic, it's alive, so it kind of changes all the time. And when we started practicing here, the weird thing is that Nordic things started to come through. Mm-hmm. So it became apparent that I should be initiated to Tyr or Tivas, and this is a massive undertaking, and we basically prepared it for the last 2 years, and this summer I went through the initiation. And yes, I can now call myself a priest of Tyr.
Wow.
Yeah, sounds awesome. I mean, what does the process entail? Like I guess what would you call it? The ritual, the whole kind of experience. Yeah. How do you? What sets it off on that journey? Is it different for each person, or?
Yes, it is for sure different for each person. And it's for the initiant to know what happened. So I can't really tell you much.
Okay. No.
I can tell you it's one of the toughest things I've done in my life.
You got through the other side though.
Yeah. Yeah, Bailey. I mean, that's like sort of circling back to that whole thing of sacrificing yourself. Like we talked about, the tattooing situation is like a smaller version of any initiation or basically any transfer from one state to another is exactly that, right? Your old self has to die. Mm-hmm. And the more to be reborn as something else, and the more you fight that, the more it hurts. Mm-hmm. And the older you get, the more you tend to fight it, the more it hurts.
Yeah. So you're basically breaking down the ego to then rebuild it in another form, basically.
Yeah, that is necessary. And of course, in any kind of branch of, I suppose, modern self-development, of course, this element of breaking down the ego, of realizing that our idea of self is an illusion, right? So that we can let it go and not take it and ourselves, in quotation marks, too seriously, right? Mm-hmm. So in that way, I mean, I'm sure this is not for everyone, and I'm sure for most people, if you can get to this point of, hey, I'm actually feeling good about myself, I know this and that and the third issue that I have comes from so and so. I don't have to be too hung up on it. It's just my ego. I feel afraid about something. It's just my ego. I mean, that's the key, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think you have to become a priest. but this, and I actually fought it for a while. The first signs were there quite early on, but I was quite happy with where I was in my life, and I was very happy with the tattooing. And the thing is, once you give yourself over like that, you are serving someone else. And so I was just kind of hoping my destiny was still to tattoo, but I mean, I might have come out the other side a road sweeper, and then that would have been
you'd have been a damn good road sweeper.
I would have swept those roads.
That's it. I mean, yeah, as much as I want to learn more about the initiation, I also absolutely respect your right to keep it to yourself, because I think, especially nowadays, people just keep so little to themselves and personal. Everything just gets shared online and told, and everybody can't wait to take a picture of something and post it on Instagram or share it on Facebook. And things almost, they lose their specialness or closeness to people when you put it out there. Like, we recently lost Harry, our cock spaniel that we had for 10 years, and it took me 2 weeks to maybe tell anybody outside of people who knew me personally and knew, because I didn't want to share it with the world. It was just something that I wanted to keep personal, and I wasn't ready to kind of put on Instagram and be like, oh yeah, by the way, everyone, please say sorry to me because my dog died. But it's
because
like
I had a feeling.
But that's we've become this kind of thing where that's the first reaction for a lot of people. I know there's a video that came out of a YouTuber, and she was, I think her daughter's cat or dog died or something, and her first reaction was to film her daughter and try and get her daughter crying and being sad because she wanted to post it, and like, because she knew that was going to get all this interaction, like people were going to get behind it and kind of comment on it, and it was going to be a really popular video. And it's like, how we've come to this world where that's your first thought.
I mean, stuff like that just straight up makes me think our Western culture is literally insane. Like we are so broken that we might not be able to fix it. Like let's examine that motive. What is it this woman wants?
She just wants people to double tap on the video and people to go, I like that, and that's it. It's insane. So
it's basically that tiny endorphin rush that you get from an extra like. What the hell is that making up for feeling that you're part of a social group? I mean, are we tapping into something so basic in our nature, but in this like fake way that like it's like a reflex, right? Oh, I got this little endorphin rush that I would normally get from feeling that I really belong in a family or a tribe, but I don't. But I get sort of a little kick that reminds me of that basic human need, to the point that she's destroying her own tribe to get it.
Yeah, she's exploiting her own child to get these little likes. It's absolutely insane, and I think we've lost our tribalness as a humanity, as we've become a global community. You can speak to more people, but you've just lost that. Even
it's an instrumentalization of humans. Humans become instruments to other humans. You're basically, when you think like that, when you act like that, then you perceive people around you as a means to an end, right? You only exist so that I can get something over here. This is the epitome of commodification, right? It is.
But these are like the kids that you didn't want to play with when you were a kid. Once you saw through them that like, oh, you're just using me for your own ends, you'd stop playing with them, right? Are we now making like generations of people that act like this?
Yeah, I think so.
Like little narcissist fuckers growing up on like building this self-image that then desperately trying to uphold.
I mean, they're currently having hearings in the Congress, I think, here in the US about Facebook and Instagram and all that stuff, all the fuckery that they're involved in knowing just how they're destroying people's psychological makeup and basic sense of self, whether it's Instagram peddling, weird diets or diet pills to kids, or it's Facebook, being a cornerstone in devolving society by spreading all kinds of fucked up lies all over the place, right? Like this is people know by now that we have put ourselves in a really, really, really bad situation with these social media platforms and the way that they work.
I remember I had this nightmare when I was 14, and I think I had just either read or seen what's called 1984, and a few weeks after I had this like crazy nightmare where I like really woke up sweating of this dystopian future. So I was 14, so this was in what 86. Oh, awesome. And I had this nightmare, and in the nightmare I was walking around the city, but I couldn't really get in contact with anyone because there were screens put up everywhere. Like you would go into the bus and there was like a screen at each seat, and people were just staring at these screens all the time, right? I would stand waiting somewhere and there was like a screen put up and everyone was just staring at it. And I remember running around in the dream, like shaking people, and because they were like they were there, but they were not there, right?
Right.
And looking back at that now,
you saw the future.
That was not really a nightmare. That was just like a future vision. We talked about it today, and I don't know, there's nothing original here, but this woman walked down the street here today. Her small kid was in her stroller, and the small kid looked up at his mom, and the mom looked down on her phone. And it is, there are psychological studies showing stuff like, and I am by no means a psychologist, so take it with a grain of salt here, but that at a certain period in a small kid's life, they need to learn things like empathy, like trust in the world, like belonging, like being wanted, all these basic things of being a human being. And a lot of them, they have to learn through eye contact with their mom, which is why, of course, the kid is looking up and mom's not there.
Yeah.
I find it terrifying, absolutely terrifying. And it's just become normal.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And also it's become normal just to kind of put a screen in front of your child to keep them happy. I mean, I don't have kids, so I completely understand that it's hard, and sometimes it can be an escape for an hour or so. But you do get some children that just get it's rather, people work so hard and they go I don't want to upset anyone here, but people work so hard, they go to work all day and then they come home and they're tired. It's such a busy life, and it's easier maybe to put a screen down and keeps the child quiet rather than just play with them for a little bit and engage. Because
but for sure, I mean, I am by no means trying to blame anyone here. I think we all have this impulse, right? I go and wait for a train somewhere. If I'm not careful, my first impulse is to take my phone up and look at it because, I'm in this, we all do it. And if we're not very consciously kind of fighting it, then of course we do it.
Mhm.
Was it one? You could say one thing about the problem of bringing up children and sort of leaving the kid to look at the screen and instead of engaging, right? You're as a parents in sort of like a modern nuclear family situation, you're kind of fucked too, because that's not how we as human beings originally were meant to bring up our children. Children were meant to be brought up in a much bigger circle of adults. You would have your grandparents there, you would have uncles, aunts, older siblings.
You just have the community as a whole. It doesn't have to be necessarily relatives either.
No, exactly.
We've lost that sense of community, which goes back to like the tribalism that again, I can't speak for other countries, but in the UK, like all the small village shops have started to close down. All the little villages have lost their, when I was a child, and I'm not even that old, my little village had a greengrocer, had a butcher's, had a hairdresser's, it had a little local sweet shop, it had just a corner shop, and then all those have gone now, and all those little buildings have been turned into shops, and now everybody drives to Tesco's or wherever else, and this whole sense of community has just disappeared. I mean, I wonder how many people listening to this don't know the names of their next door neighbors or the people who live opposite them, whereas before it was a community and you knew those people and you could rely on them if you ever needed. And I remember Sebastian Junger does a book called Tribe, and in that he says how the underprivileged and like communities that, so like poor communities tend to be the happiest because they still have this community feel where they look out for each other. And if you can't afford to feed yourself, then your neighbor will come and help you. Whereas the more privileged you get and the more privileged community, you become fractured and you kind of insulated and don't want to speak to your next door neighbor, I guess. So yeah, on that, let's wrap this up. We've gone deep. We've gone deep down the rabbit hole.
There was just someone writing that this is depressing. And I think I'd like to maybe make it less depressing. Or like, what the hell can we do about all this, right? And I think they have this like personal sort of little life theory, philosophy that every choice we make all the time, like every time we interact with someone, every time we make a life choice, every time we make any choice, really, it's either based on love, which is excitement, will to live, all of this, or it's based on fear, which is the excuses, or I don't need to get involved in this, or right? So if we very actively choose to act on love all the time, then we walk into the bus and the bus driver looks grumpy and we decide to smile because it may not be the easiest way, but we push a little bit of love out into the world, right? Oh, yeah.
I like the sound of that. I like the sound.
It did not come out as deep and great as I hoped.
No, we know what you mean.
I think so.
It's true though, because if everybody listening to this just does something nice, listen to this episode, and then they just go out of their way. It doesn't have to be anything big, just something small, just to make somebody smile, make somebody's day. That could just be like saying hello to somebody, asking somebody how their day is, and these little things they pass on, because that person might go home and think, that made me happy today, and then it kind of hopefully has a roll-on effect to others. But it's so easy for everyone to just think life's shit, life's hard, everyone's struggling, and I'm just going to sit here and get on with it, rather than trying to push outwards with that happiness, I guess. And happiness is infective. And if you're in a group of people and there's one person who's really happy, it infects to others. It's just so easy sometimes to think, what's the point?
Yeah, but it's about taking responsibility, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like if you take responsibility to carry your own emotions, then you can actually also choose how you want to act on them.
Yeah, absolutely. let's wrap this up. I'm sure we could. I feel like we could speak for another hour and a half. Uffe, you're welcome back anytime, and we can
Thanks a lot, guys.
We can see what rabbit hole we go down then as well.
This was a great conversation.
It was. Uffe, where can people find you to follow your artwork, book a tattoo?
Search for Ginnungagap Art, which is a name I chose because, well, it has a lot of meaning to it. It also sounds impossible in any language. Ginnungagap is the void before the world is created in Nordic mythology. But Ginnungagap Art on Facebook and all the things.
Instagram and all the platforms that we just
said on. All of those.
That's what I was just thinking. But that's also proves the web of kind of this, how deep this goes, that it just, you can't almost escape. You know, we have a podcast. I know you want to pull away from Facebook and social media, Mathias, but also equally we kind of rely on Facebook to grow the podcast and get people listening to our rants about how you should be more involved in the world. But it's all about balance, isn't it? These things have they have a use and they're in the world and they're not going anywhere, but you have to try and have that balance and understanding is to not let it affect your life too much.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's awesome. We live in awesome times, but we
scary
might
times.
also be destroying ourselves.
That's it. Yeah, it's a little insane. So Mathias, where can people follow you?
Instagram. I still have my Instagram account.
There we go.
Type in my name and you can find me there.
Awesome. You can follow me, Daniel_Fire1 on Instagram, obviously Horns of Odin as well. If you want to follow the podcast, it's just at Nordic Mythology Podcast on Instagram and Facebook. Same on YouTube. We have the website, nordicmythologypodcast.com. You can pick up a t-shirt on there. If you want to get a little bit more involved and help support the show, help us keep growing, Patreon's the best way. You can jump over to Patreon/Nordic Mythology Podcast. After most shows, we try to get a bonus episode for people. It'll either be a Vikings watch along show where me and Mathias sit down and watch the very popular TV show Vikings and let you know what we think about the episode and what we like, what we don't like. Or if we're not doing that, we do a bonus story time episode where Jonas Lorentzen is going to become the permanent narrator. And there we go. Thank you very much, Uffe. It's been
thanks for having me, guys.
It's been deep. It's been a deep chat. It's been a while since we've had one of these. So
really, I felt like we just scratched the surface, but I'm usually talking with people for 8 hours. So
yeah, I feel like I say, we could have gone on for another. It was Shan popped up in the chat and was like, "You're an hour 15." I was like, "Oh, maybe we should start wrapping it up." So like I say, you can come back anytime and we'll see what other rabbit hole we go down.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, cool. Thanks, guys.
Awesome, man. Thank you, Uffe. Take care.
Bye.
Thanks.